On January 9, 2007, Steve Jobs took the stage in San Francisco at Macworld. And he was there to release a new suite of products, 3 products, an iPod with touch controls, a mobile communicator, and an internet device. And Steve kept going over it and over again on these 3 products until he revealed that these 3 products were not separate, but one. And he pulled out of his pocket the iPhone, the original iPhone. And of course the crowd went wild and they went out and bought an iPhone, and it kicked off what we now know as the mobile era. Shortly after that, my wife came to me and said, "Honey, will you build me an app?" Now, I didn't know how to build apps, but I went and added it to my honey-do list, as any good husband would do. And I had it right on there behind do the dishes, clean out the garage, and build an app for wife. And so I didn't know how to build apps, so I went to Woodland Mall and went and bought the Dummies book for iPhone programming because I was a dummy. And as I'm reading through this book, I'm learning how to program an iPhone app. And about 6 months later, I was able to build an app where you could play, pause, and rewind live radio. And she loved listening to WCSG 91.3 right here in Grand Rapids on her walks. So I had built the iPhone version, and I had a good friend named Josh, and we were friends from church in small group together. And he said, "Hey, I saw you built the iPhone version. I'll build the Android version." I said, "That sounds great." Took me 6 months to build the iPhone version. Took Josh 1 day to build the Android. He was a professional programmer, so it went really well. And we donated it to the station with one condition. We said, "You can't put our names on this. We don't want any credit for this. We don't want any bug reports, and we don't want anyone to know. This is anonymous." They said sure, and they took the donation. And about a week later, we saw the apps in the App Store, in Play Store, except for they had our names and personal cell phones in the App Store. So now they had about 100,000 weekly listeners, and we started getting calls from all over the place, and people that wanted apps for their companies. And so a lot of people, and that's how we launched Michigan Labs, our software company. So a lot of people hear that story and they think, wow, you guys are geniuses, or you started a business by accident. Of course, we believe it was not by accident, but by providence, and that God actually enabled us to start that company through generosity. And so I share that with you because we are entering this new AI era. And I love the nouns that are associated with these eras because they're easy for me to remember. But the internet gave us sites, the mobile era gave us apps, and now the new AI era is giving us agents. And this idea of having agents that are doing work that humans don't want to do. And so the goal today is to allow you to feel a little less intimidated by this next era that's coming, and a little bit more inspired in order to have a way to take action upon this next era that's coming. And so I want to give 3 principles that I've learned. They all start with I because of AI, and that have really helped me as I've entered new eras. And Grand Rapids, of course, has entered a lot of new eras, whether it's healthcare or technology or higher ed, from furniture. We've seen different changes in the eras. And the first I is to take initiative. And so I love stories from business, and one of my favorite stories is from Forrest Mars. And if you don't know the story of Forrest Mars, he was in Chicago in 1935, and he and his family did not get along very well in their chocolate business, Mars Chocolate Company. And Forrest got kicked out of the company and told never to return. And so he does what anyone would do, and he decides to go on the public tour in Hershey, Pennsylvania, their biggest competitor at the time, Hershey and Mars, as well as a supplier. And as he's going on this tour, no one really knows who he is. And he's taking this tour, and he's got a secret in his pocket that he's going to reveal at the end of the tour. And he gets done with the tour, and he asks to speak with the Hershey family. Of course, they're not available. And so he meets with Bruce Murray, who is running the company for the Hershey family. And Forrest goes into his office and takes a small handkerchief and opens it up on the table to reveal candied chocolates. Now, if you were to take chocolate from Chicago to New York, all the way down to Hershey, Pennsylvania, it would have been a mess. Except for Forrest had learned this technique when he was over in Europe of how they would candy chocolate so they wouldn't get on the white gloves of people that were wearing gloves. He revealed this idea to Bruce Murray, and it was the exact person that he needed to meet with, because Murray did not have an inheritance to give to his family and was just an operator. And so Forrest Mars and Bruce Murray came together to form a new company, Mars and Murray, which we now know today as M&M's. The most best-selling chocolate brand of all time, by the way. It's really interesting. Of course, he would go on later to take over Mars. But this idea that it took him initiative, there was a lot of change that was happening in the world at that time in 1935, and yet he embraced it and was able to take pieces and even bring competitors together in order to create impact. And that happened to be the impact that he wanted to have. But it doesn't just take initiative, it also takes intention. And as you think about AI, as it's been revealed, we're hearing a lot about, of course, ChatGPT reaching 1 million users in 5 days or 100 million users in 2 months. And we've all tried these different tools. Sequoia released their early 7 winners of AI. And what they found is that they're very common sense winners. They're very practical winners. I'll give you 2 examples. One of the examples of the early winners is called a bridge. Now, a bridge is a tool that clinicians are using to meet with patients, and when they're meeting, it has a listening tool. And so it's able to transcribe their meeting as they're talking with the patient and put it into a system called Epic. So rather than going home at 8 o'clock at night and missing time with their family, they can just have it auto-transcribe right into the Epic system. It's saving clinicians a ton of time. Corewell is actually using it here in Grand Rapids, and it's saving them a ton of time. So that's a very practical use of AI. There's also another one called Sierra. Now, Sierra was one of the 7 early winners because of their ability to transform customer service. So most of the large companies now, as you're interacting with their agents, they're able to resolve 99% of customer service issues without involving a human. And what they're doing in order to create these agents that are so powerful is to give them the right context layer, to give them enough knowledge in order to be able to solve the problem, versus what we had to do before, which is solve it down all at the base level. And so it's happening more in the context window and allowing these agents to be successful. And so those are just 2 examples of many examples that are happening around AI. And this idea of being really intentional about the AI that you're trying to create, because the strategy is really where you have to be willing to say no to certain aspects in order to create successful agents. And I think most of the opportunity right now is actually perfect for Grand Rapids, because we have well-informed people and we have the ability to have the risk tolerance in order to create these new solutions that can actually go out and change the world, even our society here in Grand Rapids. And so that's the second thing of being intentional. The third one is being in person. And so I want to just do a little audience participation here. How many people have been in the workforce for more than 20 years? Just clap if you've been in for 20 years. All right, how about 30 years? Anybody 30 years? All right, 40 years? Any 40 year? Okay, claps are getting last. 50 years? Okay, awesome. Amazing. What industry? Manufacturing. All right, let's give them a hand. So this idea of AI as well as combining with our in-person relationships. So sit down, have breakfast, talk about these experiences that are not written down yet. Because AI is going to be really good at consuming information that's already written down. It's solving math problems we can't solve. It's already doing all of that computation work. But what it can't solve are those in-person relationships of trust, of being together. And so I want to encourage you as you think about being in person more often, especially as these agents get more and more attractive for us to be able to use them. Make sure you're spending time with real people, understanding their stories. Especially here in Grand Rapids, this is actually going to be really good for us. It's going to allow us to take some of that information and to leverage it to create different solutions that are going to go out and solve some of the problems that we face. And so that's my third encouragement to you, is spend time in person. And if you think about relationships as working out too, you wouldn't just work out once a year and be like, I'm in shape now, I don't need to do anything else. You would want to at least work out a couple times a week. And the same is true in our personal relationships. They take fostering, and over time, if we haven't seen people in a while, they start to degrade. And so continuing to invest in those in-person relationships. So those are really three principles I've learned as it comes to approaching a new era, in this new era of AI that we're about to enter. And I believe that most of the value is actually going to be created not at the model layer. I think a lot of that work is already done. It's going to be more at the application and the agent layer of having the context of these machines in order to take the next steps and doing the work that we actually don't necessarily want to do or can't do because it has more knowledge. It's able to never take vacation and all those types of things. But I think the best thing that I can think of for a city like Grand Rapids is to apply those three principles in order to be successful as we enter this new AI era. My family's from Grand Rapids area. My grandfather owned Forsland Furniture Company, which was a furniture company here in town. And he always thrived on in-person relationships and understanding intention and having the initiative to go out and make his city better, and being a bridge builder and helping make connections between the for-profit, the nonprofit community, and making other people successful. I was really inspired last night as we were just hearing stories about how, that question of how can I help you? It has an identity in it when you ask how can I help you? And people are wanting to know about how they can serve and how they can get involved. And so last night I left feeling really inspired that Grand Rapids is a perfect place for some of these new innovations to come out of here. And if you were to go back, a few years when Uber was invented, how many of us thought of the Uber idea before it came out? We're like, oh, I thought of that, and now someone else did it. The same is happening right now with these AI initiatives, and they can come right out of this room, and people can actually create solutions that are going to change the world right here around AI.